episode 42 of the Bearzi podcast. We got a fellow content creator from the UK. His name is Baron, and he is into psychedelics, spirituality, and personal development. So a bunch of topics, niches, and ideas that are right up my alley. And thanks for coming on the pod, bro.
Thank you very much. Just like some random context, like this is just completely on a whim, but we often find that these on a whim podcasts, that they're very fun and they often go really well in my experience. I literally reached out to Derek. It's Derek, right? Yeah, it's Derek. I reached out to Derek like on a whim. And the reason I reached out is because I saw he'd done a podcast with Psychedelic Actualization, who just uses psychedelics for personal development and self-actualization. And I said, I see you done a podcast with him. He come on my podcast. And then I was like, I am that niche. So if you're willing to talk to him, maybe you're willing to talk to me. And then here we are, like a week later, and now that's it. So we're just going to have a conversation and tune in. I reckon it will be a good one.
Yeah, Psychedelic Actualization. He's a cool dude. Our paths crossed a couple years ago when we were sort of both starting out on YouTube. And I had him on my podcast and I was like, dude, let's just make this a yearly thing. So once a year we meet up and, talk about our past years and specifically our use with psychedelics and how we use them to change and better our lives. He obviously is a lot more knowledgeable and extreme than I am. I'm more of like a novice, where he is more of like an expert. So he is someone that I really respect on YouTube because, psychedelics, they have this like terrible stigma attached to them and people label them, oh, it's a drug, it's a Schedule I substance in the US, it's illegal. And everyone has like this preconceived idea of what psychedelics are. Yeah. When in reality, if you know what they are and know what they're capable of, they're so powerful in, using them as almost like a medicine to change your life, right?
100%. The stigma is massive, and people it's like if you look at like one of the greatest teachers I've ever found is just other cultures, and like you can find cultures that have been using these since the beginning of time, and the stigma around it is crazy. Like a lot of people, the word drug is such a diverse label that to just simply label everything as a drug is it doesn't leave too much room, and it's a bit closed, because you have the drug store and you have the drug war, as Terence McKenna says. So yeah, it's quite diverse. And then obviously there's the man-made and the pharmaceutical industry, and then there's mushrooms that's just been growing since the beginning of time, and they literally grow like all over fields, just everywhere if the temperature's right, and it's there's no lethal dose, they're not physically toxic, so there's many nuances. So to just categorize them all simply as a drug, and then there's just such a stigma around it, I feel is a mistake.
Mm-hmm. And not just as a mistake, the way our society views drugs, in my opinion, is completely backwards. We live in this society where drinking alcohol is praised. And it's the only drug where if you go out with your friends and you say, I don't drink, people will think you're crazy. They'll be like, what, you don't drink beer? You don't drink whiskey? Like, people will judge you for not drinking and partaking in the drug of alcohol. And that is one of the most harmful drugs for your health in terms of overdosing, being impaired while driving, killing other people. Like it's one of the worst drugs there is, but it is praised in our society. Whereas something like mushrooms, where you, like you said, you can't really overdose and kill yourself on mushrooms. It just grows naturally on the earth, but this is labeled as something that is illegal, right? And that's sort of like what drives me crazy on this topic.
Well, when we're talking about the stigma, it's like, yeah, it's illegal. And then what I just said is like it's all drugs, right? But psilocybin mushrooms, which is proven to cause neurogenesis. Have you seen the brain scans of LSD and mushrooms? I recommend
briefly, not in depth though.
Those who haven't seen, it's like how there's like some form of like somewhat a myth or a rumor that like you can only access 20% of the brain's full capacity when you're normal or whatever. If you look at the brain scans, when you're normal, basically, if you picture like my brain, so when you're sober, it's like you've got one connection here from there to there, one connection there, one there, and there's a good 30, 40 lines connecting this part to that part, the visual cortex to the audio or whatever. But when you look at the psilocybin brain scan, it's literally like hundreds of thousands of connections, and it's like no wonder it seems impossible and so alien, because when you're messing with this, the processor, who knows what's possible.
That's wild, dude. Yeah, I've seen some of those diagrams and images before, but not ones that were that specific. But that it's you know, even when I tell people about the benefits of psychedelics, it's almost as if you've never tried it, you kind of have no idea what we're talking about. And even you can describe it in a way, or you can articulate it in a way that's perfect to someone, to a non-user, but they sort of they won't be able to get it. It's one of these things where you have to experience to understand sort of what we're talking about. I don't know if you agree with that sentiment or not.
This is a lot of the reason of where the stigma comes from as well, definitely, because people like there's a quote. I don't think it's by Marcus Aurelius. I'm not sure who it is, but it's like the opinion of like 10,000 people who know nothing about the subject matter or have not experienced it. It's hard to say. And then something that actualized.org taught me was it's like people who experience, for example, tremendous anxiety. It's hard for you to judge their situation and their predicament if you don't also have that phenomena within yourself. You can't judge psychedelics if you've never been there. You can't judge clinical depression if you've never been there. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like telling someone who suffers with like anxiety. It's almost as if you're trying to tell them, you know, how they feel when in yourself, like you might not be going through the same thing at all. So it's like, how can you understand that person if you've never experienced that yourself? And it's sort of interesting because people have told me like, oh, when you take psychedelics, you're like escaping reality. And it's like these experiences, they're not real. But I'm like, in the moment, I don't know that they're not real, and they feel real in the moment. So like my reaction to a real experience, it's the same as if it would happen in real life, right? But when you tell people that, they're like, huh? They're like, what? Like they don't understand what you're trying to talk about, right?
Well, it's very interesting you brought this up, actually, because as I quickly tried to research your channel just before we got on here, I actually took a couple notes. One of them was you took 5 grams of psilocybin magic mushrooms with 3 other friends, and you were speaking of basically what you just said there. It's like you said it feels real, but you say it's not happening in the objective world. Like it feels real, but it's not. And would you stand by that now? Like,
yeah, it's like in the moment, it's not real. Like I'm not traveling in a dimension, but I don't know that, right? So it feels like a real experience to me, even though my physical body is not in outer space, right?
Yeah.
But like I can't distinguish what is real, so it all feels real to me. So my reactions to a real experience is how I would react to a real experience in the tangible world anyway. So I just feel like there's no difference.
Well,
I just feel like they're the same thing.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I took that note, because I went, that's interesting. Because I think the idea somewhat that there actually is an objective world, as I've dabbled in psychedelics very heavily. I've had probably like 70 plus heroic doses. I've taken over 7 grams.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I've had like one of the main experiences I've had, when I was 16 years old, right? I'm 19 now, by the way. How old are you, sorry?
38, so I'm double your age.
Okay. People
I'm old, like, bro. I'm old.
I'm quite young, but I think most people seem to recognize like more maturity than I like when I'm 19. I'm not like a typical 19-year-old. But I think that's a lot to do with the psychedelics. But so when I was 16 years old, I was much skinnier. I was much more ignorant. I radically underestimated the potency of 7 grams. I'd only had 2 trips that was 3.5s each, and I went, all right, I'm going to take 7 grams. I'm finally going to meet the aliens and the other dimension. And I was so hyped because I'd only had good experiences. I took 7 grams, and there's a video on my channel that's called like 7 gram extreme bad trip, basically. And if you're dabbling in psychedelics, right, this is what you got to prepare for. Terence McKenna says it's not really possible to dabble in these things heavily for too long without eventually scaring your socks off. So I thought this was going to be profound and meet aliens and like multicolored and hyperdimensional. It was literally like the opposite. It like all the color drained. It went all gray. I know this is like deep, right? I literally realized in this trip, or so I thought, I had to kill myself. And I literally had visions of like
Jesus.
I had visions of like going downstairs and like stabbing my body in that, and I was like, I thought I was trapped in like an existential hell. So I've been in deep hell. That's a bit off topic, but the reason I was saying that is because what we were saying originally is the idea that there's anything outside of your present consciousness is not verifiable. And this is, I don't know if you're familiar with like solipsism. So the idea that I actually have my own consciousness. So you are observing me. How do you know that I'm actually awake and that I'm not a figment of your imagination? And the reason I say this is because you say you take the psychedelic and, right, my body's not actually, the objective world, I'm just led on the sofa. But how do you know there's anything outside of what is happening to you right now in this present experience?
I see what you mean. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like it's tricky because you can go deep down the rabbit hole and ask all these introspective questions. Like even if like are we in a simulation, or even like what is the tangible world? Because all that's really happening is like your brain. No light touches your brain. It's just a bunch of synapses firing and colors and neurotransmitters, and you have a perception of what reality is. Like your brain physically doesn't touch the outside world, right? So in one sense, it is kind of like it's hard to quantify, I guess you can say in words. But I've always generally had the belief that like when I can't distinguish between what is real or what isn't, if my body reacts in a certain way, then to me, it's just a real experience. There's no difference between, me experiencing the death of a child on a psychedelic trip and reacting. Whereas if that happened to me in the real world, my body would have the exact same reaction. So to me, the experience is the same thing. It's the same, whether it's in the real world, quote unquote, people want to call it, or on mushrooms. My reaction to that experience ends up in the same conclusion. So they're all just real experiences to me. And that's the way that I sort of think about it.
Yeah, I think we have generally the same conclusion. It's like what you experience basically is real. Like if you want to get to the fundamental reality, it is right now, right? There's no conceptual but about like an outside world or anything. But so when I ask you this question, or what we were talking about is there an objective reality? I'm just curious. Me personally, I've always had a deep curiosity and desire for existential questions for as long as I can remember. Is that something that you can relate to or you recognize within yourself? Or is like philosophy, epistemology, this whole realm not exactly your field?
I'm definitely not on that type of level when it comes to things like philosophy and those like deeper questions of like meaning and spirituality and all this stuff. Because to be perfectly honest, like 5 years ago, before I started this YouTube channel, I was like 32 or something like that, and I didn't think about anything. I didn't think about any of these type of like questions. All I did was like, typical guy. I love to watch basketball, party with my friends, drink, eat. Like I didn't think of anything spiritual or
Okay.
anything at all. And then I kind of like stumbled upon self-development or the
Mhm.
self-improvement niche. But this, again, it happened to me later in life. So now I think about like my thoughts, my feelings, like my beliefs, my experiences, and I get into these like deeper questions about meaning in life. So this is something that I've only started to dabble in like recently.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, you've obviously been thinking about these ideas at such a young age. Whereas for me, I had a whole lifetime of just being like a typical guy that's like stuck in the matrix, just
Hmm.
another cog in the wheel, going to work day in, day out, go to the bar on the weekends. Like I was the most typical average dude you could ever imagine. Like there was nothing special about me whatsoever. And it wasn't until like I started to get into like, okay, what can I do to improve my life? Oh, I can work out, I can eat better. Oh, mushrooms are a thing. Mushrooms gives you introspection. It makes you confront your ego and makes you a better person. I'm like, it humbles you. I'm like, oh, okay. So this sort of like interest in these subjects, it is very recent for me. So I'm someone
Okay.
who I'd consider myself extremely like a novice or a beginner when it comes to any of this type of ideas. I guess that's the
Okay.
best way I could put it.
All right. Well, I reckon. So that me, like I say, like I don't know how you found personal development. What I was going to say first before I forget is that, but when you get onto this like personal development treadmill, is there is a radical transformation. I'm sure you've noticed it within yourself. Probably like
Mm-hmm.
when you, it's like the whole paradigm kind of shifts. But the way I found it originally, like you say, is you were saying, "Oh, how do I improve my life?" And then you found personal development. That's how I found it. I don't know if you found it through the same thing. I literally just started searching on YouTube, like how to fix my life, because I basically grew up on a computer. Then I found Better Ideas, Matt Diavella, and then also the existential curiosity. I was like, what's the meaning of life? And then it kept on going, kept on going. But is that somewhat how you found personal development? Did you just go, how to improve my life? And then, oh, it's all here, apparently. Or how did you find it?
Um, to be perfectly honest, it was this very interesting moment where I realized I'm getting old. Like
Yeah.
I'm in my 30s and I was like, I'm getting old. I'm like super skinny and like I was like skinny fat. Like I've always been athletic, but I never worked out ever. I never cared about my diet. I always ate like McDonald's and
Yeah.
cookies and candy and bullshit. I never cared about anything. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should try to do something about that. And so what I did was I got like a gym membership. I just started like going to the gym. And I know the exact moment when all this stuff triggered for me is when I went to the gym with my friends and we all went to the bench press. And my friends were benching one plate. So that's 145 pounds, right? And I knew I couldn't do that. So they took off the 45-pound plates and they put on the 25-pound plates. So that is 95 pounds with the bar. I
Hmm.
benched it and the bar got stuck on my chest and all my
Right.
friends laughed at me. So I'm like a 130-pound guy who can't bench 95 pounds off my chest. Like that's how
Okay.
incredibly weak I was. And I was like, it was so embarrassing that it made me like come to the decision I got to change my life. I got to do something. So it became like gym and then food and exercise and then it just snowballed. And that's how it kind of started. It was is me just embarrassing myself in front of the boys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you kind of
It's
like
hard to admit.
realize. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most freeing things is just to be authentic and honest. This is one thing that I am like on my channel, and then this is what Hamza says. If you want, it's just a tip for you and your channel. If you want to really grab attention, is to speak the unspeakable. So I'm willing to, for example, I uploaded a video on my channel about my depression story, and in that I was like, when I was in high school, I cut myself and I wanted people to know about it for attention. And it's like, there's no filter. I don't have like this social insecurity because I've been on YouTube since the beginning of time, and I've dealt with this ego. I made an album, I deleted it because it was cringe, but cringe is just a projection and of what's deemed normal. So I think just speaking the unspeakable and speaking about your embarrassing experiences, people will connect with that. For example, what you just said about the embarrassment, I was calling my mate. So I grew up with a friend before I got super onto the personal development treadmill, and I was speaking to him recently because there's somewhat of like a divide that happens. There's a quote by Eckhart Tolle, who's a one of the most fundamental spiritual teachers. He wrote The Power of Now. He speaks about not being a victim to the internal dialogue and the chatter. He said, there's a quote by him that is, the people around you, your friends, they either like join you on your path of development somewhat, or there's often, or of awakening or spirituality, or there's often a divide somewhat where you start to take your life not necessarily like seriously, but like sincerely. You care about your development, you care about self-love, self-respect, and improvement and growth. And meanwhile, everyone else still is eating strawberry laces and McDonald's, and people don't really move. And you know, a lot of people, as you get more into the consciousnness work, you see how people are very projecting and very hateful, a lot of people. And then as you start doing the deep inner work on yourself, there's somewhat of a, you change so radically. For me anyway, I'm not who I used to be at all, because personal development is my thing. I just care about growth. And then the people who I used to hang around with are not, they haven't got onto the personal development treadmill. Therefore, there is somewhat of a, as my characters radically changed, there's somewhat of a inevitable divide somewhat. Not that I like actually push them away, but what I was saying originally, so I don't mean to go off, is that it's relating to what you said about the embarrassment of the bar getting stuck. Is I was telling my friend, I was like, why do you not pursue life? Like, you're clearly not like particularly happy. Most modern people are like pretty miserable. They don't have much of a life purpose. They're just like a leaf blowing around in the wind, like you said, a cog in a machine. I was like, why don't you get on the personal development treadmill a bit? Like, you got to be careful about doing that to people, because then it puts a pressure on them, which can just cause stress and depression. But I was like, just do 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups a day, because he just doesn't move. I don't know how you was, but he just walks to work, walks home, sits on a computer, eats junk food. And then when you do that for years and years, you don't need muscle. And that is likely why you got stuck under the bar. So when I told my friend, why not minimum exercise, he tried to do 10 push-ups and he basically couldn't. And he was then in pain of muscle stress for literally doing like 10, 15 push-ups. And it just relates to you getting stuck under the bar. Is like, when you actually try to do maybe what you thought you could do and you realize you can't, it kind of clicks like, oh fuck, I thought that I was maybe capable. Or it's somewhat embarrassing when you realize that you are just frail and weak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I was someone who sat in the car, drove to work, sat at a computer for 8 hours, sat back in the car, drove home, and sat on the couch, watched Netflix, and then went to bed. So my entire day was sedentary. The only movement is like going to take a piss at work or going to get a coffee or something like that.
Yeah.
I was sedentary like my entire life. And it's interesting because it's really hard to offer advice for people to start a self-improvement or self-development journey, because there is so much resistance that comes from the everyday human being. And I really notice this with my coworkers at my day job. So often every Monday, dudes would just be pissed off. They're so mad. They're like, oh, it's Monday. We got to do 5 more days of this bullshit. And then Friday comes along and they're like excited. Yeah, it's Friday. Let's go out after work. Let's party. Let's go, watch the basketball game, watch the hockey game. And
Wow.
then when Monday comes, when Monday comes again, they're pissed off. And so I'm like, if you guys hate this so much, why don't you do something about it? Right? Why don't you do something about it? But like 99% of regular people, they'll never do it because it's too hard, it's too difficult, they don't know where to start, and their brain puts up this barrier of resistance where there's all these excuses, right? And for me, I kind of stopped trying to give advice to those people because I view them sort of as lost souls, and I just try to focus on myself and the other people who are kind of like us, who are more open-minded to these abstract ideas, who are more in the the lane of trying to better their life, right? It might be health, it might be your physical health, your mental health, your spirituality, your relationships, your whatever it is. Like if you're just trying to improve some aspect of your life, the end result of that journey is amazing. It's so rewarding. Like this is one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever been on in my entire life. Like not only am I stronger, and more fit by working out and healthier by eating better food, but you build better confidence. My skin appears better because I'm not eating so much shitty foods, and everything about your life will improve. And the problem is that these improvements take a tremendous amount of time. And one of the biggest analogies I usually hear people say, it's like you're building a mountain with layers of paint, right? And every single rep or every single salad you eat or every candy bar you throw in the garbage is another layer of paint that you're just putting on that mountain. But to build that mountain, it takes a tremendous amount of time and repetitions. And so I'm like, I love the self-improvement world. I love it so much, but I've kind of given up on trying to convince my peers to join me, if that makes any sense.
I can relate so much. So I done an interview with Psychedelic Actualization, Mr. Nature, and his girlfriend, Miss Sunshine. And all of us, it's about spirituality, but spirituality is ultimately like personal development. And what we've come to conclude somewhat is that basically you perceive personal development as the holy grail somewhat. You find this rabbit hole of a gold mine, and then you find it, and you want to bring it back to your tribe, as that's your nature, and you say, hey, you may not know it, maybe because you haven't got the contrast of the better life, but most modern people are pretty miserable. Therefore, I've found personal development, spirituality, and so on. A lot of people can think that you're preaching, but a lot of people don't want anything to do with it. And a big reason why is because, like you say, like you said about your co-workers, they don't want to improve their situation because people actually would rather be a victim and suffer, because being a victim entails that you don't have to take responsibility. So I've got a short story that sums this up perfectly. One of my colleagues, she is in perpetual pain because she has horrible stomach cramps, but it goes deeper than that. It's like most of the time, if she eats, she gets thrown into 4 hours of pain, likely caused by how most modern food is toxic. But I said to her, and she's always dosed up on painkillers, and she's tossing and turning, and she can't sleep. And she's fairly old. I said, have the doctors identified an actual physical problem and diagnosed and gone, this is the mess up here, we found it, here's maybe the solution? And she said, or I said, is it just an arising phenomenon, you feel it and there's not an explanation and they haven't found it? She said, oh, they haven't found it, it's just something that's come up over time and now I'm in pain all the time. I said, okay, so there's many things that the Western medical industry won't tell you. So there's a big list really. So first of all, I work in the local retail. I'm confident that 100% of what is in there is toxic, and I'm quite radical with what I deem as poison or toxic. Like all of the food is sprayed, it's GMO, a lot of it's refined sugar. As you say, alcohol is pushed. Like the one drug our culture has adopted is the most toxic and boring, in my opinion, compared to the psychedelic. And then it almost, if there was an agenda to destroy our health, it certainly seems like that they're doing a good job if there was an agenda to do so, because there's so much toxic food. We start our children on sugar. As I work in retail, there are children that come to the till with Lucozades, like literally 8-year-olds with a mass, and I have to sell it to them. Like there was a lady in the shop earlier walking around with like a 4-year-old, and he was like, I want a drink. And she was like, we've got Pepsi in the car. And I'm like, don't feed a child that, please. I'm going off. But what I said to this lady basically is, I said, so there's many things that our culture won't tell you. So the medical industry, like the pharmaceutical industry, that just gives you a scary name and a tablet and plasters over your symptoms. It doesn't actually get to the root cause. So like we're all looking for the cure for cancer, but we're not looking for the reason for the cancer emerging somewhat. Like I'm sure we are, but it's like depression, the antidepressants, they just like mute your brain and they plaster over symptoms instead of finding the actual root cause, maybe going deep, doing consciousness work and changing your diet as the serotonin's produced in your gut and all this stuff. And I said, so there's that, the medical industry, the doctors, I believe the medical industry and what the doctors will tell you is likely heavily based on profit and greed, because they don't tell you about the alkaline plants and the organic food. And I said, for example, I do breath work. No one really knows about breath work. When I do breath work, people think I'm a psychopath. A lot of modern people, for some reason, they're like, cold showers, people are a bit queasy about that. It's like, cold shower? Why would you want a cold shower? That's uncomfortable. So I'm listing things like, I look at other cultures, they have alternative healing methods, and I basically tell her that likely if she was to pursue becoming her own doctor, researching and taking into account some of the practices such as ice therapy and breath work and that, she could likely cure what she is a victim to. And what she's a victim to, as I say, she can barely sleep, she's tossing and turning in radical pain all the time. She said, oh, I think the doctors actually have to find out what the problem is in order to do anything about it. No. She just kind of disregarded the whole thing. So what I was saying originally is that people would rather be a victim a lot of the time than actually take responsibility, because that would mean she'd have to quit smoking. That would mean she'd have to radically change her diet. Most people are addicted to sugar. And that, so when you're saying to your colleague, oh, personal development, they're like, really, their subconscious is going, I know what that entails, and that entails a long process of unwiring all of my neuroses and my diet and actually pursuing life instead of just flowing around like a leaf in the wind and a cog in the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And that requires it's mental labor. Sorry, go.
No, that's exactly what it is, because like you have to take that responsibility, right? Because that's all on the individual, and it's so much easier to like you said, play the victim. That's the easier decision to make, it because there's less work required for you to do that, right? And so like it's unfortunate that because there's some people, it doesn't matter what you tell them. It's like those guys that are smoking and the doctor says, oh, if you don't quit cigarettes, you're going to die in 6 months. Right. And, oh, yeah, I'll change my life. And then all of a sudden they keep smoking and then they're dead in 6 months. Like you hear stories like that all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So like I've come to this conclusion where I love the self-improvement world. I love this whole journey that I'm on, but I'm trying to document it without trying to preach towards everyone, and just kind of promote the idea by doing. And just showing people like, this is what I'm doing. This is what works for me. I'm not saying that you should do this or you have to do this. I've given up on just trying to change people's minds, especially like my friends and family. I don't even bother anymore. I just, I let them do them. Right. But I want to set an example by putting in the work. Right. And so I'm not the most disciplined person, because discipline is something that I've had to really, really work on, because I've had so many bad habits over the years. Like,
Yeah.
because imagine 32 years of not caring about what food you eat. Like, imagine the amount of bad habits that I built up until this point. So it's taken me years and years and years to break down those bad habits and incorporate new ones. And there's still lots of bullshit things that I do from time to time, right? And so I think, if there's anyone that wants to talk about the self-improvement world or is thinking about starting a journey like of their own, then I'm like, let's go, right? I'm your guy. Like, I'm all for that. I'm so excited to talk and share if you're open to that idea. And I feel like there's just that percentage of the population, whatever that number may be, where they're sort of like just set in their ways, and you kind of can't help everybody at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think so. An analogy that me and my friend cooked up, the one who was embarrassed that he couldn't do any press ups, was it's basically like, as you said, you had somewhat like 32 years of bad habits and neuroses and unconscious being a leaf in the wind sort of thing. The way it is, it's like, imagine like a ship soaring through the ocean at like super speed. This is you at age 32, and then you find personal development, and all of a sudden you have to like kind of like anchor it and do a 180, but it's been going this way for so long that to like, it'd be much easier, and this is why people don't want to take responsibility. It's much easier to just hurl the way that you're going than to like use the mental physical labor to like pull the tide and do a 180, because it is really a 180 a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Like imagine if you eat, candy bars and ice cream and cookies and Burger King and fried chicken all the time, and now you want to eat chicken breast and salad and vegetables, right? Like, how hard of a transition that is. That's a complete 180, like you said. Like, you're going from the extreme shitty foods to the extreme healthy, or depending on the individual, right? But like that transition, you can do it for a day or two. That's not too hard, but can you keep it up long term? Can you keep it up for a month or 2 months, a year, 5 years? And I think that's where so many people, they just can't do it. Like, they maybe try a new diet. Oh, I heard about this keto thing. Let's try keto. Just eat fat and no carbs. They try it for 2 weeks and then it falls off. Or they get a gym membership on January 1st. They start their New Year's resolution, and then the gym is a graveyard by March, right? And it's just like this common pattern you see in society.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes me sad, right? Because there's so much more on the other side.
Yeah.
And I say this because I'm someone who grew up fairly introverted, shy, generally unhappy and weak. And now I'm extremely confident, I'm extremely happy, and I'm moderately strong. And these are skills you can work on. And these, at the end of the day, it's a choice. It's 100% a choice, regardless of, what genetics you're born with or whatever, right? These are all choices that you can make. And I've made the choice to actively try to be more happy. I pursue work that gives me fulfillment, work that I love. I spend my time with friends that are meaningful to me and aren't into doing bullshit things. And it makes me happy. I have this like circle around me of positive people. And it just, the overall happiness in my life has compounded at a rate where like it's like an amazing place to be in. And if I could grab a couple friends, here and there, you want to go to the gym, come with me. Like, let's go. I'll pick you up. I'll give you, you can do my workout routine. It's simple. I'll bring protein powder for you. Like, let's go. Just bring your shoes. That's all you need. And let's do it. Right. And it's, those people, you can help them along the way. And if you can change their lives in a better way, like that, at the end of the day, in my opinion, is one of the best things to do in the world, is, just helping other people. Right.
I couldn't agree more, especially with the friends. This is one of the best things. So, I mean, I'm quite a lone wolf at the minute, especially with the radical spirituality, like, and with the psychedelic abuse, basically, a lot.
Psychedelic abuse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't lie. Right now, like, it's not so bad. I mean, well, but like in my past, like I say, when I was like 16, I think I was taking them like large doses every 2 weeks, and then like probably a few months ago, I was like every week, maybe twice a week. I'm very like
Holy shit.
serious about spirituality. Yeah, it goes deep, and there's no doubt if you abuse these substances, your life does go upside down, and it gets very radical. So that's like a very deep rabbit hole. But before potential, like, I mean, we don't have to go into that. But so a few things. So so the real friends I was on about. Yeah. So it's hard for me to get like a lot of friends because a lot of people distance themselves because they think I've lost the plot because of my I do like a video is going to come out soon where I'm like, you are God, I am God, reality is God. And they're like, people hear that and they're like, what are you on? You've taken way too many
Yeah, they freak out.
drugs. You took drugs and now you're crazy. But anyway, what I was going to say is like when I met up with some finally these conscious people, spiritual people into personal development, real friends want to see you grow. And it's one of the best things to be surrounded by positive people. And if you have those people around you, as you said, that is such a gift to have. Because do you agree that friends are often like mirrors and they reflect? Do you ever find yourself learning about yourself through your friends who are open-minded and willing to be honest with you? And have you had that experience or?
Yeah, it's like both positive and negative. What's that guy that Jim? What's his name? That Jim Rohn, that famous motivational speaker. He says you are the combination of your 5 closest friends or
Yeah,
whatever.
I've heard that.
Or like if you hang out with 9 losers and you'll quickly be the 10th. It's basically
Yeah.
again that friend circle that you hang around with. If it's positive, it rubs off on you. If it's negative, it rubs off on you as well, right? Like I've had both good experiences, positive and negative, with my friend circle. And I consider myself extremely lucky because I have a group of friends, like 5 guys that I've known pretty much since we were in grade school, so grade 1, so like 6 years old. And
Yeah.
we went through school together, high school together. You know, we all went to different universities, but then eventually we all came back, and we're super close. We'll see each other, once a year. We'll do Christmas, and it's nice like to have, a friend circle that I've known these guys for 35 years. Some of
Yeah.
them, right? Like no, not 35, 32 years I've known some of them. And it's like, they're very supportive of some of us are super creative. One guy is a full-time YouTuber, another guy's a programmer for an IT company, right? Like another guy, like we're all doing completely different jobs, but there's always this like support, right? From those core group of people. However, whenever I let someone else kind of make their way in that was more negative or toxic, it would like ruin the whole vibe. Like just their like negativity, or just
Yeah.
like they're doubting you, or just have these stupid ideas. Oh, let's go to the casino and gamble and let's get drunk on Saturday night. Like those type of people, they just poison everyone in the friend circle. And it could just be that one negative guy, right? So over the years, I've kind of like, I just kicked all those people to the curb. I'm just like, forget you. Sorry if you think I'm an asshole, but there's no time for you. And I'm 38. I'm going to be 40 in 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't have time for those dudes anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right. So
definitely right. It's, there's no, as I said, when I met up with some really conscious friends, I realized that you said, oh, there's negative people, right? I didn't realize that everyone around me is pretty heavily negative until I met these like spiritual, psychedelic, personal development people. I was saying to them, I was like, I can see how we can quickly like manifest if we were to meet up more. Nobody does negativity there. They just don't do it. They're always positive. They just say no to the bad mindsets. And there's a video that's like, it is relevant. How you said like one person can ruin the vibe. It's somewhat relevant. It's by actualize.org again, and it's called How Socialization Makes You Stupid. It's rather an outlandish title, but it's what I've noticed is if I go hang out with low consciousness, negative people, it quickly, I get like mired in their groupthink and their kind of frame of mind and perceiving the world, and it quickly kind of throws me off. And this is why it's important to get out of negative environments, like if you're in a workplace and people in there are generally pretty toxic, it's like this actually heavily mediates your nature. For example, I was speaking with a rapper called Inspector Veg, who's all about diet and that, and he was saying when his girlfriend gets back from her retail job, her vibration is all off whack. Like, she's normally very centered, meditative, spiritual. She goes to her job, she comes back, got mired in this groupthink of negativity, and then it takes a while for her to recenter herself. And I feel that at my job, and it's important to surround yourself only with the conscious people that you want to be. And as you said, say no. I haven't got time for these people who aren't, who don't love themselves, don't love the world, and just like, you want to help them, but at the end of the day, if you've tried and you can't, and you're not willing to give them the energy to try and convert them into like a more positive person, and they don't even want it for themselves, you just got to step back and do. It's out of self-respect and self-love for yourself. You don't deserve the negative energy because you actually don't need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like it's kind of rough. I read this book once called "The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck" by Mark Manson. It kind of applies to the situation, but the way I think about it is, you have this, you feel kind of bad, for your friends or acquaintances that you cut off or you ghost, or you cut contact with them. But the way you need to think about it is, it's not that you are leaving them behind, it's their unwillingness to keep up. And once I kind of thought about it like that, where it's not my fault, it's not me throwing them in the trash, it's just them not willing to keep up with me where I want to go. And if I want to better my life in this particular direction, and this certain group of friends or acquaintances don't want to come with me, then that's on them. And you need to have that mindset, where you're not doubting yourself, right? Because then you can also like second guess yourself, right? Like, am I being an asshole? Am I being a bad friend? Right? Am I being a terrible human being? Am I not being considerate to other people? But it's like, if you cater to everybody, like, so many people will just drag you down. And I've met so many people over the years, just like, they're just trying to drag you down to their level because that's where they feel comfortable. Or they see, oh, Derek is trying to do something to better his life, so then they'll try to like make fun of you, right, to bring you back down to them. And this happens to me at work. Like, a lot of my coworkers, they found out that I started doing videography jobs on the side on the weekends, right? Because I stopped. Oh, let's go, go party, go to the bar, and I stopped doing that. Oh, I can't. I have like this video gig I have to do. And then they found out about the podcast and the YouTube channel and my newsletter and my website and all these things that I do, right? And now at work, right, I come and they're like, oh, look at me. Look at Derek. I'm a YouTuber. And they all like shit on me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but that's what it is. They're trying to bring me back down to their level because they see that I'm trying to do something with my life outside of the Monday to Friday, right? And it's very interesting because I saw that firsthand. And to be perfectly honest, it really hurt my feelings because I was like one of the guys, I was like, oh, you watched LeBron James last night? Yeah, that game was sick. You talk about NBA, you talk about Game of Thrones or that Netflix series, but now I've been extricated from the group. I'm no longer part of the group, right? Because of these things that I do on the weekends, and they kind of like make fun of me. And, I in the moment, I wasn't mature enough to realize what was happening. But, I've had time to think, and think about the situation deeply. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, at the end of the day, it's okay. I don't mind that they think that way. I don't hold a grudge. I don't hold any ill thoughts against them. I don't resent them in any way. But this is a very particular situation that will happen to people all over the world. It's very common, right? Is people will try to drag you down to their level so that they feel better about themselves.
100%. I'm very happy you brought this up. So, some things that basically, you grow up, for the most part, most friends are pretty generally like low consciousness. They're not on the personal development. They're not willing. They don't want to be highly conscious. They go into the pub and that. They come in on a Monday, they complain, and basically, in my experience, when I was growing up, I like, for example, I made an album when I was 16. Like, it wasn't the best, admittedly, but basically, it's not just the album. It's if you try to do something, what everyone says is cringe. That's gay. What do you mean cringe? I'm just trying, like they just that's literally what it is. And then cringe is yeah. Someone builds a frame of how they should act based on like insecurity, and then they project it. So a lot of what they're doing is they project their like insecurities somewhat onto you. And I feel like a lot of people, like these people who go like, that's what they were doing to you. Like, oh, you got a podcast, you're doing videography, or however you say it, or like you got a newsletter and a website. Cringe. It's like, what do you mean, bro? I'm just trying to like be creative. And so hold on, I read a couple. So the notion of them trying to pull you down to their level. Have you heard of crabs in a bucket?
Oh yeah. That's saying.
So those who don't know, it's like, supposedly, I don't know if this is actually the case. Like, if you put loads of crabs in a bucket and one of them tries to leave, the other crabs are like, I don't think so, and they just like pull him down.
Yeah.
So, and then it's also the fact that you brought this up as well links into what we were speaking about earlier, as I told you a quote by Eckhart Tolle, which is, you develop, and then if the others don't develop and they stay in their kind of hateful hodgepodge hive mind of projection and self-hate, and then you evolve, and then in your words they don't keep up. So it's not like you're leaving them, it's just you're evolving. Like Hamza said, Hamza put on like a post on his channel, you've changed, and he replies, you didn't. It's like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to evolve and grow. And then people are like, oh, you've changed, man. Now people say it to me, and I'm like, yes. And it's the most fulfilling path I've found, is changing and evolving and growing forward. When you look at most people, I don't know how you were for the first 32 years of your life, but I look at, say, like my parents and that. 10 years ago, they're exactly who they are now. And 10 years into the future, they're probably going to be basically who not exactly, but do you know what I mean? Like, most people just remain the same. They don't really pursue life and growth.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's sort of like most people are creatures of habit, right? They get in a routine. They find a job or a career. They go there every single day. They eat lunch at the same time. They maybe watch some movies or shows or sports or World Cup, right, on the weekend or something. Right. And then that's pretty much it. And they do the same thing day in and day out, and you're just like on that treadmill. And, it's comfortable. It's easy. It's predictable. That's sort of like a life that's, people enjoy that. And it's very strange, because my perspective started to shift towards that ideology when I became a parent. I'm a father. I have 2 kids. And when my daughter was born, all of a sudden, my ideas about self-growth, do what's difficult, push yourself, that went out the window. And the father brain turned on in my mind, and my mentality shifted, where now I want my daughter to go to school. I want her to get a day job. I want her to get a pension, a 9-to-5 with benefits. I want her to have an easy life. And then I caught myself. I'm like, whoa, these beliefs, they contradict my own personal beliefs. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And I realized that as parents, this is very strange, because I never knew this was going to happen to me. When you become a parent, all you care about is your child. All the child needs supersedes your own. And you just want your child to be safe. You want them to be comfortable. You want them to have an easy life. So it contradicts your own beliefs about personal growth and going after what's difficult. And that's sort of like what I think happens to a lot of parents, where they have that mindset as a parent, it turns on, and they don't stop and they don't think about what's going on. And luckily for me, I have like these psychedelic experiences, or these like meditation practices. I spend time and I think and I journal and I think about what I'm doing. I think about my beliefs. So I have these conversations where I talk openly about my beliefs. And then I caught myself, I'm like, wow, I'm becoming one of those parents that are just like these people that I'm trying not to be. and it was very difficult for me to fight those evolutions as a father, because now I keep feeling that it's very strange. It's a very strange phenomenon that I never thought, becoming a parent that they would do, but this is definitely happening to other parents all over the world.
So I know what you mean in terms of, like, say my father, he's very selfless is the word, I think, is somewhat when you become a parent, it's like this is now your only project it can turn into. My dad, like, it's almost like he just refuses to take care of himself, even though taking care of himself would be taking care of me. But it's like all of
Mhm.
it is for his children. So, like, I think I'm clear on what you're saying. I did have a bit of confusion towards the end. It's like I don't know. I was actually going to ask something, but you say it's like a so it's like I don't want to make you have to start again. It's like
No, that's fine.
no damn it. So you have a child, and then so you're on. Tell me if this is somewhat it, and then maybe you can clear it up. So you're on the personal development. You have a child, and then does that go on pause, or are you saying that, like, you want your child to just have a comfortable life, or you want them to be on the I understand that it's like the selfless
Mhm.
thing, you adopt selflessness as many parents do, but
It's sort of like I have these beliefs where the self-improvement world requires you to do difficult things. I think
yeah,
that's what's important, right? To, not eating fast food, that's a hard choice. Going to the gym and lifting weights, that's a hard choice. Exercise, like doing all these things are very, very difficult. So
mm-hmm.
I, as a person, have these beliefs of doing difficult things that make you uncomfortable so that you can grow and become a better human being.
Yeah,
But then when I had my daughter, I thought that those personal beliefs that I have, they would just translate instantly to her, right?
right,
Because
yeah.
if this is how what I believe how I should live, isn't that how I believe my daughter should
Oh,
live,
I
right? I thought
understand.
there would be
Yeah.
like this smooth transition. But
Mm,
then the parent brain turned on, and now I have these two separate beliefs where I
okay.
believe this for myself, but I believe this for my daughter. But I'm like,
Oh,
wait, how does this make any sense? They're opposing beliefs. How can I
mm,
believe two different things completely at the same time? And now I'm like, no. I want my daughter to do this. I want my daughter to struggle. I want my daughter to do the difficult things. I want my daughter to not have an easy life, right? But that's like an active choice that I have to, do in the moment, because that's a very hard decision to make. Like, I want my daughter to struggle. You know how hard that
yeah.
is for a parent, especially as a man. Like, you want your daughter to struggle. Like, who wants that? No one wants that as a parent. Like, you want your daughter to be safe and happy and having fun and be enjoyable, and you want the world to be flowers and roses, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
know that's not how the real world is, and I
Yeah,
want my daughter to be strong. So I need
yeah.
to make sure that she follows this set of beliefs over here and not the ones coming from the parental brain. If that clears it
I
up.
no, I understand now a lot better. Yeah, so it's like that was your intuition upon having a child, is that you want the best for them, comfort and flowers and rainbows. But then
Mhm.
obviously that might not actually be set in stone, because once you realized, you were like, hold on, my like intuition probably like programmed into my genetics of keep safe at all cost, no suffering, no struggle, comfort, as it is for it's not it's almost like when you first incarnated, you had that belief for yourself. You just want comfort, you want flowers and rainbows, and then you realized eventually that the easy path is the hard path, as comfort
Mhm.
leads to discomfort, and pleasure eventually you have nowhere else to turn but pain, and then also over comfort and stuff just often leads to like disease, and like what's deemed comfort is like media, Netflix, and then you mess your dopamine up, and then you end up wound up with depression. And so the easy path is the hard path, and then vice versa. The hard path, through challenging yourself, seek discomfort, because pain will make you grow. And then so all right, I won't name drop just for the sake of it, but somebody who I know thoroughly has a child, and I know the ins and outs of this household and this family, and she really, I perceive, and many people perceive, and many parents do this. I'm sure you've noticed, is they baby their child to the extent where they just shield them from all cold, all pain, and they just like, you want food, here you go. You want internet, here you go. And then it's how Wim Hof says it. It's like we've domesticated ourselves, and this is the idea of the cold shower. It's like the reason there's so much disease and depression is because we're wound up in the comfort zone where we're just thinking. But say in the cold shower and in the radical discomfort, good luck being depressed when you're getting shocked into your body because you're in an ice bath. So it's like we baby our children because we think that's what's best for them. But really, when we really think about it and go past our initial like intuition, it's like giving them everything they want is what you just for some reason inherently think is the best thing to do. But that's very surface level. That's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. When I take my daughter to her weekly play group class with a bunch of other kids, there's parents that are just like hovering over them, ready to grab them in case they fall. Whereas I'm in the corner, just let them play, right? You don't have to always be there to shield them and protect them and carry, you know what I mean? Because then you're raising a human being that is going to be weak, right?
Yes.
You're making a weak man out of your son. You're making a weak woman out of your daughter. If you're just coddling them, right? You make weak human beings. But it's tough as a parent because you need to find that like sweet spot. You don't want to be like a tyrant, right? Or where you don't care at all and just throw your kid outside, right? There has to be like a
sleep outside,
like a balancing game, right? Yeah, I have a neighbor. I had a neighbor who was like that. He would send his kid outside from all day long for 8 hours, and he'd be out sometimes in the winter in Canada. It gets super cold, and one time I saw him on a skateboard going down the street, and he had like no socks on. It's like barefoot, and I'm walking down the street with my daughter in a winter jacket because it's like cold outside. I'm like, what the hell is that? And that's like the opposite end of the spectrum of the parent that doesn't give a shit at all. So I think there's like a balancing game that you have to play there, and so you want to try to get somewhere in the middle. And again, like that's part of my journey is trying to find out where that is, right? I'm trying to find those answers for my own life.
100%. It's like there's a saying, hard times create strong men. I think there's a book actually promotes it a lot, and it's like, yeah, it's just like you just like confront your child, wake them up in the middle of the night, outside 12 hours, no shoes, this will make you strong.
Yeah, it's funny because I sort of have this belief that a lot of people's problems with their mental health and personal anxieties are self-inflicted. Because I'm someone that's done, I can't remember how many years it's been now, but I've done cold showers for like many, many years, maybe 7 years. And even in the winter, I take a cold shower every single day, and it still sucks. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Oh yeah, you get used to it. No, you don't. It sucks. Like, if you do a cold shower properly, it sucks, bro. Like, yeah, I do it every day, right? And if you do a bunch of things that are difficult, like take a cold shower, and I'll do like maybe like a 5-minute meditation session. I'll have like a healthy lunch, and then hit like, a 45-minute workout, right? So pretty simple stuff, but all fairly difficult tasks. Once you do all those things, you feel amazing. Yes, you feel amazing. There's no bullshit. You're not in your head. There's no social anxiety. There's no like depression. Like, there's nothing there. You just feel, there's like this calmness. So you exhale and you feel great. But like, you don't know what that feeling is like unless you do it. And what's his name? Joe Rogan has a great point about this. And he's like, if there was a pill you could take that would give you the effects of like doing like a hard 90-minute workout, and you would feel that way after, he's like, everyone would be addicted to that pill because that feeling is amazing. but it's like no one is willing to go through that struggle. And again, it's like doing the hard things is what makes you a better and stronger person, where all this bullshit in your head, all these anxieties, and caring about what other people think, and all this depression stuff, like it's not there if you do those difficult tasks. Like you won't even think about that stuff.
100%. So there's a few points there. So the magic pill, that's a big reason I think why a lot of people rely on the medical industry, because as you said, if there was a pill that makes you feel like you've done the workout, then everyone would be addicted. Well, there are pills somewhat of that nature, and that's because everyone's looking for a quick, easy magic pill, quick fix solution. And then that's why people, get so addicted to sugar, and that's why you're saying it's so hard to turn the tide of the momentum, and that's why I get salty with parents who just start their children on sugar, because then they have to, the sugar's like the magic pill to euphoria, and then the actual way of getting that long term requires a lot more discipline. But yeah, I was gonna say
sugar drives me nuts.
But what does that do? Like makes you like hyper?
No, like the obsession that people have with sugar, and it's like people that get, what's the type of diabetes you develop? Type 2. Type 1 is the one you're born with. Type 2 is when you develop. I'm not sure, but whatever one you develop, it's like the people that develop diabetes, they want a pill or a medication to fix their diabetes, when the answer is try intermittent fasting, try not eating, try increasing your insulin sensitivity, right? Try eating less calories. Like that is the answer. It's not a pill for your problem. And that's sort of like the whole medical stuff is all, it just runs on that. It's like this pill fixes this, or you need a pill for this, you know what I mean? Like it's so crazy. It's like, oh, I need this medication because I'm on blood thinners. It's like, you need a medication for the medication for the blood clotting. Like what are we doing? Like this kind of stuff drives me crazy. And it's like, again, it's that same thing of, I want the magic pill. I want to press the secret button. I want the secret. I want the tip. I want the shortcut, right? It's always searching for the path of least resistance is what people are always searching for. And that shit drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
Oh, it's snowing. Nice. I couldn't agree more. It's that's it. People want the quick fix, and I actually realized this the other day. I was thinking, well, the way it is people want the way that like all the advertising and the medical industry and like the greed and the profit is like made, is that all the products are what people want. Like if you're intelligent and thinking long term and actually pursuing life, you want like a long term lifestyle. But what most people really want, and I thought about the same day I had the same insight, is most people are pretty surface level in terms of it's kind of like a caveman attitude. It's good now or it's not good now. And they kind of like, a lot of people I feel like lack foresight, or they just like, they don't care. They want good now or not good now. It tastes good now or it doesn't. And then because people, there's a demand, like supply and demand, so many people are looking for quick fixes because that's just our human nature, I feel like, and you feel that as well, I feel that as well, but then it takes discipline and intelligence to realize that's not a good long-term strategy, that people are willing to pay for the magic pills because they do work now. But this is what we do in terms of destroying the planet, and a phenomenon of just humans is we sacrifice our future self and the planet's future resources for the present. And then our future self is often angry at our past self. I'm sure you've had that many times, right? Every time you eat junk food, you just hate your past self.
Yeah, especially with the age that I'm at now. Like, do you know how many times I thought back, like, what was I doing in my 20s? Like, why did I do this? Like, why? Right. Like when I was 18, I dropped out of university and pursued a crazy career in gambling that lasted 9 years. And so that was like a decade of no education, no building any skills, like nothing. It's like this period of just, it's like a void in my life. It's like
Yeah.
9 years. It's not wasted. Like I learned sort of how to be an entrepreneur in a sense, but from 18 to 27, I was like that same guy. Like, oh, let's go party on the weekend. Let's hit up the bar, or like for you guys, the pub or the club. Or, you know what I mean? I had that same mindset of like an 18-year-old. I never evolved. And so like when I hit my 30s, I'm like, man, I have these regrets. I have all these regrets that I wish that I made better choices in my earlier life. And this is sort of why I like to do this podcast, because the YouTube game is very interesting because it's a young person's game. And like a plethora of the guests on this podcast are like 19, 20, 21, like you, like your age, right? Like young guys. And it's like, if there's anything that I can share from like my past regrets or my past experiences that could help out like the younger generation, I'm so down to have a conversation, just like share topics and mindsets, because these are things that I wish I did earlier. Like I wish I had a habit of reading self-development books. I wish I cared about the food I ate, right? I wish I got exercise. I wish I did anything difficult and just didn't live a life of comfort, right? I wish I did all those things. But like now later in life, there's not much I can do about that. I can't sit here and just cry about things that I regret. I have to do something about it. And so like what I try to tell you guys is like, don't like be better than I am when you are 38, right? Don't go through the same bad decisions that I made. Like, trust me, you will regret it. And now once you get to 38, like where I am, I have to work twice as hard to try to catch up. Like I'm like busting my ass as a video editor, as a videographer, as a podcaster. I'm trying to make up for my poor decision in the past. So I am almost punished by my past self, because my past self sucked away all my time through pleasure. And now I'm facing the consequences of those poor actions, right? And it's like, this is the type of information we need to give to young people, right? It's to show you guys, like, don't be like me when I was young, right? Because you'll regret it. Trust me, like the things that you're doing now, the things that you're talking about, learning about how the world works, educating yourself, like this is amazing. Like it's an amazing time to be alive, especially now that you guys have things like YouTube where you can just like access information like this, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, when I was 18, I had to go to a library. Like in 2002, I'd have to go to like a library to read a book, to get an encyclopedia. And I'm like, oh, like what is that? No one wants to do that, right? It was like a terrible way to get education.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, this is why I love talking to people on podcasts, man. This is like, this type of stuff is great.
100%. I think this whole the personal development thing I think is so inspiring. Like Hamza, he just done like a meetup in Dubai, and he just had like 25 young men, and someone commented like these just the people who pursue personal development and they want growth. There's just such like an inherent positivity to it, and when you get like a tribe of them together, it's just like fills me with hope for the future. But there's a couple of things I just want to say quick. So yeah, again, like when you said your past self, it's like that ship that you're trying to like turn around with momentum. And then when you said half your life, you feel like half your life's been lost somewhat. There's a lot of people who will find comfort in that because they'll be in the same situation as you. And then if you can prove your success, and then there's a lot of value in that. And then again, I talked about this rapper called Inspector Veg earlier, and it just reminded me of a lyric. And it was actually these two bars that are like exactly what you were just saying. He goes, man, I feel like half my life's been lost. Had a lot of negativity around me, but I had to cut it all off. It's like, that's literally what you was just saying.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. But you know what's interesting though? I don't totally regret my past decisions because of all those shitty decisions I made, I was able to find self-development when I was 32, right? So in some sense, all that shit led me to the right path. It just took me a lot longer to find it than most people. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, as long as I use the remaining years of my life in a good way. And this is sort of like why psychedelics have become important to me, because now I'm getting close to halfway to dead, right? Like, what's the average lifespan for a Canadian male? 82, 82. So in 3 years, I'll be halfway to the average to my death, right? And so it's like now these introspective questions will arise where now I seek psychedelics, on the macro side, maybe like once or twice a year to confront ego death, to confront my bullshit, to face my fears, because that's, something that I need. Whereas on the micro side, I'm someone who dabbles more in microdosing for, the benefits to creativity, productivity, mindset, all that type of stuff. But it's like now I am on the path towards these questions of asking, right? Of what if, of these existential questions that, 30 or 29-year-old Derek never thought of, not once even considered. That was never a thought in my mind at all. Whereas now, I'm trying to think about these questions more because I want to live a happy, fulfilling life with the years that I have left, and I want to make a difference, not by preaching this type of stuff, by just doing and showing and just sharing my journey, like on the YouTube channel or whatever. And, if someone finds it and they like it and it resonates with them, that's great. And then hopefully, that could spill over to that person's life, and maybe, they could start their own self-improvement journey, or maybe they get into, eating healthy or losing weight or whatever it is. Right. And then you start that chain reaction. And that's sort of like why I really love what Hamza is doing specifically for young men, because he is a great mentor for the people that are in like their teen years, maybe their early 20s, where someone like me is not as relatable, where Hamza, like young guys can really relate to him. So I really love like the message that he's sharing. The only concern I have with Hamza is like, I hope he plays a YouTube game right and doesn't get banned or censored for anything like misogynistic. Because the YouTube game is one that's very sensitive. Like, you're walking a very fine line when you're trying to promote and lift up men or like masculinity or whatever these type of things are. Like, I'm honestly really, really hoping that he doesn't get banned, because his Skillshare got banned, his Instagram got banned. I'm like, oh, please God, please YouTube, don't censor him, please.
I get it, like, and I know the time's getting on a bit, so I assume. But just quickly, like, why would they ban Hamza? You know what I mean? You know Hamza. And I feel like at this point, I'm walking thin ice, definitely, with some of the stuff I said about, like, the medical industry and, for example, like, to be honest, I won't even go into some things because I don't want to put your podcast in danger.
COVID, say it, bro.
I was wait, I won't go into the deep, but I was like, they didn't. Again, Inspector Veg, he was like, he has a lyric. He said they want to keep us alive, but didn't mention the electric plants. And it's like they don't say anything about the immune system at all. They're just like hand sanitizer, which goes straight into your bloodstream. Like, okay, but anyway, that's my opinion. It's not Derek. Okay, I got actually removed for COVID information because I interviewed somebody called Spread.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and he was just talking about his views on COVID. I wasn't, and then he got taken down. So this is my view. Mm-hmm. Please, YouTube, but remove that segment if you want. But do you know what I mean? What Hamza? He's so good for the youth. He has just a positive message flat out, and I feel like he won't get banned because I feel like I think he's very intelligent with the way that he's going about it. He's not going flat out, and he's very careful, I think. But you can't help but agree with me. You're banning Hamza for, I don't know if he's actually said anything worth banning for, but I mean, what is his sensitive nature like? And you keep banning people. There's going to be no choice but going to be like, Rumble's on the rise, but YouTube's the main one, and it'd be such a shame. They need to stop dividing their platforms.
I know. It's a real shame. This is a problem that it eats away at me at my core every single day, because I am someone who I love YouTube. I love YouTube as a platform. I love everything about it. But to be perfectly honest, at the end of the day, these social media companies, unfortunately, they're all left leaning in terms of a political ideology. So when it comes to left-wing politics, if there is a certain hot button term, that where they don't like, that's in the moment, and unfortunately right now it's, masculinity, it's sort of like trans kind of rights, and that those are very sensitive topics on the left in terms of politics. And if you are going to be a YouTube content creator, you have to play by the rules, right? You have to play by the rules. And if you it's hard, because even if you don't agree with those things, you're better off just not trying to not address them or not talk about them at all.
Yeah,
but like it's very slippery, because I feel like he's right on the line, right? He's right on the line of like toxic masculinity. But like what is that? I don't even know what that is. That's such a crazy thing to say. But like it's an unfortunate thing that I really hope that he doesn't fall over too far on that line. He kind of like keeps it together. And it's sort of like a fear that I have, because personally I dislike this whole cancel culture stuff, because my personal belief is like, you should have free speech. If someone says something crazy, okay, that's good. Now we can debunk it, or we can argue it, or we can steelman it, or we can refute it. And that's how you come up with proper ideas, is through discourse and conversation. And that's something that I love, is being open and being able to talk about anything, right? And so I feel like Hamza is such an important person. He's such an important leader and creator, because he's helping so many young boys and men out there who are lost, right? That maybe they don't have a father figure. Maybe they don't have a good dad that is introspective and thinks about their life. But, maybe Hamza is someone they can look up to, right? And you're making better human beings for our future, right? And I really, really hope all this cancel culture shit, I hope it all just goes away, in all honesty.
I can't help but to agree. I feel like if they keep pushing this agenda of censorship, of disempowering men somewhat, there seems to be an agenda to suppress this kind of narrative of toxic masculinity, which I'm sure exists. Like, you don't want too much of like an male ego dominance, but it's like, it's that you can't. If Hamza did get banned, Hamza would still be here. He wouldn't be on YouTube. But how do you think YouTube and everyone would react if that happened? Now Hamza's gone. I know Andrew Tate is not like the best, but it's like, yeah, I mean, like, I still like, he's still very good in a lot of things he said, but it's just like, how many of us can they do? Like Russell Brand, I don't know if you're familiar with his, like many people. I feel like there's a certain point where, like, you can't just censor everyone and the truth will prevail, I believe. I don't think there's ultimate. I think it will take time. There'll be an evolution. I don't want to get banned. I had to make a decision where it's like, do I censor myself? Do I mediate myself, water down my message, or do I play by the rules of the game? And I chose to not water down, but at the same time, it's like a fine line, because if I get terminated, I know that Rumble is not so good at reaching. It doesn't look so good. YouTube is the platform, and I don't want to lose it. So honestly, I think what you said is the best. It's like, people know that, say that actualize.org that I speak about, his approach is like, he knows that the viewer knows what he's on about, but he doesn't explicitly just come out and go say some outlandish like conspiracy or something, but like, because the viewer and the content creator are basically on the same page, there's like an underlying knowing that he doesn't have to explicitly state. And I feel like you can communicate that, and you actually, like, it's very strategic, and you don't actually flat out break the rules. And
it's interesting, because like, I think I agree with 95% of what Andrew Tate is about. Like, I feel like that guy has a lot of good stuff. Like, if you think about it objectively, the problem is people canceled him off of like a 30-second TikTok. I'm like, okay, but did you watch the full 2-hour Your Mom's House podcast? Did you watch the full thing? No, you only watched a 30-second clip, and that's why you're outraged. Okay, so that's crazy, right? You got to listen to the whole thing, listen to the entire thing. But my problem is, like, I am someone who is very pro men, I'm very pro masculinity, right? But I am also very pro female, right? And I'm also very pro feminism, right? I feel like you can be both of those things. Like if you want to like lift up women's rights, sure, but you can also be pro men's rights at the same time, which is something that I am, right? But it's like, again, like I love YouTube so much where it's like I really have to, worry about, things that are like very sensitive, hot button issues, right? And again, like Rumble, it's there, but I've gone to it. I'm just like, this is, I don't know. Should I just throw my videos up here just in case as like a safety net? But this isn't what I want. I don't want to be on Rumble. It's like I want to be on YouTube. Like this is where I want to be. Like I love YouTube, right? I love Google. I love all this, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it's such a tough situation. Like I don't know what the answers. I don't know what the answers are, right? I think Elon Musk buying Twitter and bringing back some of the people that got banned or shadow banned or canceled, like Jordan Peterson getting canceled. That was crazy. Like that's one of the most intelligent dudes.
Who's banning Hamza? Who is banning Jordan Peterson? How can you ban Jordan Peterson? It's Jordan Peterson. You know what I mean? He's just like I don't even need to say, but I know what you mean. It's just like you can be pro both sides. But yeah, it's a very thin line. One thing about Andrew Tate, I just want to say quick, is like, so you say you agree with 95% of his stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with his take on psychedelics.
Oh no, I've never heard him talk about psychedelics.
This is the only reason why. So like, there's a clip, and all of my like normal Western friends send me it to like debunk me because they all just like love Andrew Tate. And there's a clip of him. He goes, people keep asking me about this ayahuasca, and they want me to go to South America to take this ayahuasca. And he goes, he's like, people will just keep searching for meaning in nothing. I've seen South America. It's a shithole. I don't want to go there. If you want to go to South America and take ayahuasca and then throw up on yourself and lie to me about how you saw spirits. And it's like, he's just so ignorant about them. So I like Andrew Tate, but it's just a few things just like maybe you could do. Again, it's like you can't talk about something you've never. I made like an hour video on just that take as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a take of someone who's never done the thing, right? So he's just like sensationalizing his take of why it's stupid, but he's never actually done the thing, right?
To know, don't even know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I know, ayahuasca, bro. That's a weird word to spell. I didn't know it was like A-Y-A. Yeah, I thought it was started with an I.
I don't know.
I found out how to spell it. Yeah, I thought it's like A-Y-A it starts with or something. I thought it started with the letter I. I was like, ayahuasca? Ayahuasca? I was like, what?
I don't
crazy
know.
Thing.
They're all weird. It's like, what is it? Dimethyltryptamine, ayahuasca, psilocybin. It's like, psychedelic has even took me a while to learn to spell.
Yeah, psilocybin's a hard word to spell. That's one that I struggle with a lot. I have to spell check it all the time in one of my YouTube videos.
It begins with a P. It's like psilocybin.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Hey, bro, I got to wrap up the pod. I got to go.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
This was a great conversation.
Definitely. I had a really good time.
Let's continue this conversation one day on your channel, and then we can link. I'll put a link in the description of this video over to yours, and hopefully we can do something over there and keep the conversation going, if that makes any sense.
I would absolutely love it. Thank you so much for having me on. If you don't mind, by the way, you say you were going to put Baron. Do you mind putting the OXSN, the OXSN, just because people will probably find me? I'll link all this on my socials. But yeah, sure.
How can people find your stuff?
So it just literally search OXSN OXSN. I'm literally on like everything now. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok. It goes on. I don't even know everything. I literally, one strategy maybe you should implement.
every one of my videos has like 20 links of like every social media in the history of the world. It even has like I don't even use it, so I use it so little that I don't even know what it's called. There's a few of them, but it's like the only reason I do that because I'm prepared to potentially, unfortunately, I don't want to get banned. I won't try to. It's not my intention, and I probably will tone it down in terms of, but like in case that does happen, if you have a concern about that, if from day one you link extensive links to all your social media, even ones that you don't really use, you're on Rumble and Twitter and everything, it's like, and then you collect emails and you get everyone to follow you on everything, then it's much harder for somebody like Sneeko, for example. He got terminated and then he made Twitch. So, but if you make Twitch and then tell everyone about it and then get to, everyone already has Twitch. So, you know, it's probably a somewhat better strategy. But yeah, I don't know why I said that. But I'm on everything.
Sense.
Yeah, you can find me on everything.
Perfect. That's a perfect way to wrap it up. So guys, check out OXSN's work, OXSN on YouTube, Instagram, all the social media platforms, and we'll continue the conversation on his channel. So thanks, bro, for doing this. This was great.
Thank you. I had a very good time.
All right, guys. Peace.